everybody. It is time for Snipes and Stripes, and it's a good one because it's our last one of the year. The season is over. The Florida Panthers are the Stanley Cup champions. I have my good friend Tim Peel right here on Snipes and Stripes on nofilter.net. It's a pretty somber mood, I think, a little bit having the hockey season over. Peelsy, how you doing? And what do you think of the season-ending Stanley Cup final?
I'm doing great, buddy, except it's hotter than Haiti here in St. Louis. It's 110 degrees today with the heat index. And I know you're in beautiful San Diego where it's 75 and sunny every day. But no, you know what? It's funny you bring that up because I said to somebody yesterday, I go, it sucks not having any hockey to watch right now. It sucks. The
It's
playoffs.
not even just to not watch any hockey, but not even to look forward to a day when it's going to be on.
I know. The playoffs were so good. They were so amazing. The Stanley Cup Finals, I felt like the first four games was some of the best hockey we've ever seen in a Stanley Cup final. And then I kind of think we went bang the last two games. It was a bit of a letdown.
Well, it was crazy because I didn't think Florida could play better than they did leading up to Game 4, right? And all of a sudden, Game 5 and Game 6 happened, and Florida became an even better team. They amped it up even more. They totally took the entire will away from the Edmonton Oilers, and literally they did. You could tell by looking at their faces on the bench that they knew that they didn't have a chance, and that is an unbelievable situation to happen in the National Hockey League these days, where the parity is so strong that the Florida Panthers could be that dominant and that good as a team as a whole to be able to all be on the same page mentally, all be on the same page physically, all be on the same page in terms of their work away from the puck, the way that they move the puck, the way that they attack the puck, their positioning. It was the most incredible precision of hockey that I have seen in maybe ever.
What's that old expression? Will over skill, right?
Yeah, and
And
it's paying attention to detail.
paying
If
attention.
you watch the Florida Panthers play and you watch the Edmonton Oilers, who are very good with the puck, they're big, they can skate, but every single time an Edmonton Oiler touched that puck, there was a Florida Panther on it. Every single time they had zero time to make a play. And it's one thing to have a couple plays where you don't have time, but when you have a whole team that no matter who touches the puck gets hit, gets some pressure, or is forced to do something with it, there's no way that there's going to be any cohesion. And on the flip side, the Florida Panthers work so hard away from the puck. They get into position,
Yeah.
they talk, they move to a place where the player with the puck, their teammate, has a better opportunity to get them the puck. It's not like they just go to an area, they go to the open area. And there's so much beautiful cohesion between every single player in every line. Like, look at the breakouts, like D to wing, wing to center, center to wing, D to far wing. They were precision passes because the guys were in sync and they were all prepared to work for each other.
They're such a complete team that a guy like Sergei Bobrovsky, who really is, as you know, he'll be in the Hall of Fame years down the road. Two Stanley Cups now. Who knows? They might repeat next year. None of us would be surprised. But he didn't even have to play out of his mind because that team plays such a team game. They're so well coached by Paul Maurice. Shout out to Jamie Kompon, who is he's an unknown name in the hockey world as far as fans are concerned. But Jamie Kompon just won his fourth Stanley Cup as an assistant coach. He won one in Chicago with Quenneville, one in LA and with Sutter, and he won two now with Paul Maurice. And so shout out to him. He's got some ties back here in St. Louis and runs some camps in the summer, and he's just a tremendous human being.
Wow, it's
But
amazing.
uh, But that team, JR, it'll be interesting to see. Will they be the New England Patriots of the NHL or NFL, where they lose a piece or two, but Belichick or Maurice or Zito plug in another guy because they seem to have this system down that they're just a tough team to play against in the playoffs.
There's no question about it. And I think it's going to be easy to piece people in there because who's not going to want to go to Florida and
No.
live that lifestyle? Who's not going to want to take their golf cart to practice in flip flops and a t-shirt? Who's not going to want to go into the rink and play with a team that does things as a team, that has a good camaraderie in the locker room where they're not pressured by the media as much as they are in Canada? Who's not going to want to go in and do that? It's going to be up to Zito and to the people to make sure that they do get the right attitudes in there, because you don't want to bring a bad egg in there and all of a sudden change up the mentality that he's going to stay on his own page. You're going in there, you're going to be on the Florida Panthers page. There's no question about it. And I think Brad Marchand fit into that perfectly. It wasn't a Brad Marchand show. He played the style and did what he had to do, and it actually just fit his game perfectly. But yeah, I think Zito's done an amazing job. I think he's got an easy job, to tell you the truth now. Now he can just fit pieces in and find the right tools that they need. If they do lose, some players in the offseason, which they will, because you can't pay everybody that gets Stanley Cups. I think it's a really good point, but
Do they?
just
Do they? Because I think he does. Does Marchand re-sign with Florida? I think he does.
I don't know. I don't know how. I mean, Marchand's had a great career. He's made a lot of money. I think it could be down to his lifestyle now.
Right?
Um, you heard Sam Bennett said he's staying.
Yeah.
Okay, does
He
does,
told,
does that come to fruition?
he
Does that
told
come
me,
to
Wolf of Wall Street, I'm not going.
Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But I did want to make a comment about the point that you made about assistant coaches. Uh, it's too bad that assistant coaches don't get the recognition
Right.
as much as they should. They are a major part of every team. They do a lot of the grunt work. They do a lot of computer, do a lot of film. They go over a lot of film with players. They are kind of the buffers between the head coach and the players, where they're more like the buddy system rather than the coach who has to be more of the tough aspects. So the fact that your buddy there, you mentioned, won 4 cups. I wish that the assistant coaches would get more of the accolades, or get recognized more for what they do to build that chemistry and that attitude in the locker room.
Well, but based on some of the people that get in the Hall of Fame these days, Jamie Compound should go in the Hall of Fame with 4 cups. But
Well,
we'll,
I got to say this. Well, let's move to that really quick, because they just announced the Hall of Fame yesterday, and I got a call from Joe Thornton in tears yesterday.
uh,
Um, I wasn't expecting the phone call, and all of a sudden, I get a FaceTime from Jumbo Joe Thornton, and he's sitting there with tears in his eyes. He goes, "I'm coming to join you in Toronto," and I'm like, "What are you talking?" And I'm like, I started crying, I started screaming.
uh,
I totally understand the whole emotion he was going through. It was an amazing 2 minutes before he jumped on the plane. I was so appreciative and thankful and grateful for that phone call that he shared it with me. I can't be more happy for him. But as far as the NHL guys go, I'll just stick to them. Chara, absolute 100% first ballot Hall of Famer, no question. Duncan Keith, no question, first ballot Hall of Famer. Norris Trophy, 3 Stanley Cups. And finally, Alexander Mogilny goes in. So I do not have one iota of a complaint about the NHL Hall of Famers that are going in this year.
no, I agree, and I guess my question to you is because, and I'm so happy for Joe. You know, you and I have talked about this in the past. He was one of my favorite guys. He was just. I was telling somebody at the golf course yesterday. He was so loved by his teammates.
Yep,
Uh, he
the
treats
most love.
he treats everybody with so much class and respect and love, and I'm just so happy for him. I sent him a message yesterday. I'm just so happy for him. I saw the video with Lanny and Ron Francis calling him, and he was so ecstatic. And you got Big Z. Char is just a stud on defense. My question is,
Probably again, one of the most liked teammates of all time, one of the nicest
like,
of all time.
like, my question is why? Because I don't know. Why did it take Mogilny? What was the hang up with the Hall and Mogilny? Do you have, because his stats, they're 473 goals, 559 assists, 1,032 points. What was it that held him back for so many years? If
I don't
there's a
know.
there, I don't
It was
know.
a shocker to me. It's always been a shocker to me because I always thought and it's your impact on the game, right? What was your impact on the game? What influence did you have in the game? And I don't think there's many people that you can go back in time and say that had such a crazy influence or impact on the game. Alexander Mogilny, so everybody knows, defected from Russia, literally defected from Russia from the World Juniors to come and play in the NHL. So in doing that, he left his family.
Yeah,
He put his life on the line. He put his family's lives on the line because that's a dangerous thing back there during communism. And he came to the States not speaking a lick of English. And I think he had to totally get used to a new way of life just to play in the National Hockey League. And then that opened up the conversation of Russians coming in. I know Sergei Fedorov had a big part of that also,
great.
but I believe that Mogilny was the catalyst of that whole regime change that brought the Russian players over to the National Hockey League. Not to mention, he won a cup with New Jersey. He's
Yep,
played in the Olympics. He's played in World Championships.
yep,
He scored 70 goals. I know he had 475 goals.
yep.
Maybe his points weren't as high as people would want them to be Hall of Fame numbers, but his influence on the game was. And boy, when you talk about Alexander Mogilny, there's not many more talented players that have ever played the game than him.
He was incredible. And I saw a quote or a little story earlier today when Keenan was coaching him, and Keenan was just berating him in the room. And he looked at Keenan and he said, "Do you think you scare me? I have people that wanted to kill me. I have people that wanted to kill my family. And do you think you scare me?" And it shut Keenan up. The players in the room were like, "I've never seen Mike not have." Mike would always get the last word in, right? And he didn't know what to say. So to your point, the
And by the way, that would have brought a lot of respect from Mike Keenan to Mogilny for sure.
deflecting would have been a tremendous deal. And I just not because I know it's not easy decisions on who you select and so on. But I was looking because I knew Big Walt. He's had 538 goals. He's the only player in the National Hockey League. There's no other player that is not in the Hall of Fame that has more goals than him. He's the only player that.
I think he's the only player over 500, with the exception of Patrick Marleau, who's not eligible
And
yet.
I was doing some research this morning. He's got 1,065 points. The other guy that for what he did for the game, won a cup. What he's continued to do after the game in padding his resume is Rod Brindamore. 452 goals, 732 assists, 1,184 points. So before I finish, 1,184 points, 1,065 points. Rod won a Stanley Cup. Now, if you look at the Sedin twins, 1,041 points for Daniel and 1,070 for Henrik. Never won a cup.
How many
One,
goals? You got to put the goals on there. Put the goals for the Twins.
Henrik only had 240 goals. He had 830 assists. You know what I mean? Like, so that's what I don't understand sometimes. Because I'll see comments on social media. Well, so and so didn't win a cup. Well, so and so didn't win a cup. Well, the Sedins didn't win a cup, and they're in the Hall. I just think Walt and Rod deserve to be in the
Yeah,
hockey.
they're going to get there. I've learned, obviously, I learned firsthand. It took me 12 years for a lot of different reasons. And, you know, I look back now, since I am in the Hall of Fame now, and it's almost like it's not that I'm embarrassed that I was mad or that I was impatient. but I understand it is a political thing a little bit. There, it is about, who nominates you within the Hall of Fame walls. It is a system that they go by, and at some points you just got to wait your turn. There's no question that Keith Kachuk's going to be in there. There's no question that Rod Brind'Amour is going to be in.
Yeah.
There's no question that Curtis Joseph is going to be in there.
Mhm.
And if you believe it or not, to me, there's no question that Theo Fleury at some point is going to be in there. But it is a process that they are maniacal about, and it's how they do it. And um, all I can say is, as being going through it myself, trust me, it's worth the wait.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, you know what? We're pumped for Joe. He's an awesome guy. I wonder if he'll trim up that beard for the Hall of Fame speech because
Not a chance that he is gonna be flailing that thing left, right, center. He's gonna be so proud of that beard, standing up there with that Hall of Fame logo behind him.
I
There's
guarantee you'll be there.
I will tell you, I am so excited because this will be my first year back to the Hall of Fame
Right.
as a Hall of Fame supporter, as a
Right.
member of the Hall of Fame, and I couldn't be more happy to be going to support one of my favorite teammates of all time, and probably one of the most popular teammates for
I agree.
every single person that played with them. So I'm
I agree.
thoroughly looking forward
Hey,
to this.
listen, before we get on to other topics, I do want to get back to the finals just for a quick second because there's a lot of rumors
Yep.
out there on on Gibson from Anaheim moving to Edmonton. Do you think Edmonton can win a Stanley Cup with Stuart Skinner? I don't put all the blame on him because at the end of the day, you got to score more goals. Um, can he win a Stanley Cup for Edmonton? Can
No,
Stuart Skinner?
I don't believe so.
Because
I
he's
don't believe so. I think what you're seeing with Stanley Cup winners is consistency for a long period of time.
right,
And I don't. And Skinner is has shown to be a streak goaltender. In the first couple of rounds, it was 6 goals against or 1 goal against, 6 goals against or 1 goal against.
right.
Um, Granted, his team has to be better in front of him. There's no question about that. What Bobrovsky showed. Bobrovsky showed that he can make that big save time and time again when it was absolutely needed. Um, he didn't have to make as many saves as Skinner at most points, but he was consistently making the big saves. And by the way, he did steal a couple games by himself throughout the playoffs that allowed, another Stanley Cup. So my answer to that question is no. I don't believe that Skinner is the player for Edmonton, and I really don't believe that Gibson is either. To tell you the truth,
Yeah,
he's
I agree. Like Stuart Skinner, he's only 26 years old. Okay. He's played in the finals the last 2 years. So he played when he was 25, 26. A lot of goalies do not win Stanley Cups when they're 25, 26. So I'm not ready to write off Stuart Skinner. First of all, I don't even want to talk bad about the guy because I love his interviews. I love how accountable he is. He is just seems like a tremendous teammate and person. But at the end of the day, he is only 26 years old, JR. A lot of these
yeah.
goaltenders
And,
don't.
and by the way, he's a good goaltender. Let's not take anything away from him. He's a very good goaltender.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a very good goaltender. So we're not. It is. It's the hardest thing to win. We know this, right? It's the hardest trophy to win, and it's easy to throw out the goaltender. I think there's a lot more. I truly believe what the way that the Florida Panthers shut down McDavid and Draisaitl, McDavid even more so, was absolutely one of the most epic performances of all time. Um, Connor McDavid really wasn't effective,
No.
especially in the last 2 games, and that's one of the main reasons why. I will tell you who I was really disappointed in, and I'm not a huge fan of his either. Is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He gives me absolutely nothing. He gives
Yeah,
me absolutely nothing. He's a talented player and all, but boy, can that guy disappear faster than Casper the Ghost.
but I think he had a broken hand, JR. I think he had a broken hand.
All right. Well, you can have a broken hand, but that doesn't mean that you can't go out and be a physical player, do something that's a little out of your element, a little bit
Yeah,
out of your
that's not
character.
That's
You
not
know.
his game. I know how you think and so on, but that's not his game. I think he had a broken hand.
Yeah, I've just never been a fan. To tell you the truth, I've just never been. I've never been on the Nugent-Hopkins fan club, but
I kind of find him to be a perimeter player.
yeah,
He's
I mean, he's very talented. Don't get me
obviously
wrong.
very, yeah.
He's spurty, but I'll tell you one thing: by no means would I go on the ice or before a game and be worried about a Ryan Nugent-Hopkins whatsoever.
You know, it'll go.
Going back to John Gibson, though, John Gibson's 31 years old.
I know.
He's 31 years old. I mean, that's to
And he
bring.
gets, and he gets hurt a lot lately.
It's 'cause he gets a lot of shots on him lately. So, you know, I think that, and I really don't. Do we see Anaheim giving him up, or is he a free agent? Because Anaheim is making some big moves. They got a great coach.
Yep.
Um, they just traded Zegras, which I think is probably good for both entities. It's good for Anaheim to kind of separate themselves from Zegras, get him into another place where he can play hockey, maybe where he's not distracted, and a place where it can maybe his attitude changes a little bit because you get traded. It changes your mentality. And going
Mhm.
to Philly might be a good place for Zegras because I'll tell you what, if Zegras doesn't play well in Philly and keeps the same kind of you know showboaty style mentality, Philly's going to eat him up.
Well, they'll run him right out of town. Those,
Philly will eat him up.
yeah, they will.
Yep.
Yeah. You
Yep.
know what? It's good for it's. I like the trade for Danny Briere. I think it's a good move.
Yeah,
And
could turn out to be a great move.
it could be good. Talk it. Our buddy Talk's going to be coaching him. Hopefully, he can get him playing the way that I think he needs to play in the National Hockey League. It'll be interesting to see. We lost our buddy in Edmonton. I want to talk to you about Connor McDavid, and is he going to resign in Edmonton? Because I think he will. I would find it hard to believe that
He's
won't.
got 1 year left, right?
But they better build a team around him, buddy, because they just lost Kane. Kane went to Vancouver this morning, and good for Evander. He had 1 year left. Yeah, he's in the final year of his contract, so they cleared some cap space at 5.125. Kaner's off to Vancouver. He'll help that team. Um, but you're going to have to pay Bouchard, and I've been a critic of Bouchard. Great offensive capabilities, great slap shot, but man, we saw in the last few games of the Stanley Cup Finals, he can be a defensive liability,
He can.
and they're going to probably pay him $10 million. You got Daniel Nurse or Darnell Nurse making $10 million. Like, you got to surround Draisaitl and McDavid with good players like they've done in Florida. Does Connor see that happening, or does he say, you know what, that's not going to work here?
Yeah, this is a sticky one for me.
It's tough.
I mean, he is an Ontario kid. He's a guy that's I think his legacy is going to be lived on a Stanley Cup. He just lost twice, back to back, which is frustrating. Um, I mean, obviously, to have your choice of where to go becomes very important for him. Is he a loyalty guy? Does he feel he needs to stay in Edmonton just because the fans want him there or because he got drafted there? Um, I think that mentality is flown the coop these days. It's going to be very hard for them to build a team that I think will allow Connor McDavid to win a cup.
I, I don't think they're winning a cup next year. I don't.
Oh, I don't
I
think so
don't think
either.
Edmonton's winning a cup. So that's another year lost in Edmonton for Connor and Leon. Um, I you know what? Jeff Jackson, the GM of
If
that,
you were him, if you were Connor, what would you do?
I think I'd move. I think I'd move. And I'm like, I gave it what, 7 years he's been there, 8 years. Um, I think I would move. I think I would move on because I don't know. I just don't listen. Jeff Jackson, who happened to be Connor McDavid's agent back in the day, who's now the general manager of the Oilers. Obviously, him and Connor are tight. They brought in Knobloch, his junior coach in Erie. They're doing everything they can. The ownership there with Katz are doing everything they can to keep Connor happy and bringing in his old agent as a GM and bringing in his old coach as the coach. But at one point, does Connor look in the mirror and go, "I don't know if we can win with this team. I don't know."
Hey, me personally, I think Connor should just not sign and then sign in Chicago, so him and Bedard can play together next year and start building a new winner in Chicago in one of the biggest markets in the National Hockey League. So there's my take on Connor McDavid. Go to Chicago. Go to Chicago.
Chicago. It's going to be interesting, buddy. It's going to be interesting. Speaking of guys on the move and free agents and so on, can Florida keep Sam Bennett, Marchand, and Ekblad? Can they keep all three of them?
Well, history says no. One thing that the Florida does have going for them is the cap is going to rise
Yeah,
significantly.
yeah.
Um, Now, I would think that there's going to be some more lower level people that might leave for their own good because they'll be able to sign more money other places. Um,
Evan Rodriguez is one that came up today.
yeah, what's that guy, Lucinanen or
Yeah,
Luceranen? Yeah, some of these lower lined guys that are up are going to have that opportunity to go someplace else because people want Stanley Cup lineage, right?
yeah,
They want lineage. Um, so it's going to be really difficult though because everybody wants their cookie after you won the big dance,
sure.
right? I mean, everybody, even the fighters, everybody wants a higher contract because they've won two. It's going to be very, very difficult. I wouldn't put anything past Zito. He seems to be has the Midas touch, and I think some of these players like Sam Bennett, like Marchand, are gonna have to take less money to stay in Florida.
Right. Right. Yeah, I saw Ekblad's speech during the parade, and it sounded like a farewell speech, and I think he's a guy. I think I forget what he was making this year, but he's a guy that, man, like I thought he played incredible in the playoffs, and
Played great.
a team
Probably played his best hockey he's played in his career.
Joel Quenneville coached him in Florida. Quenneville, I could see him signing a big ticket. Verbeek signing a big ticket. He just got rid of Zegras' contract. I could see him going to Anaheim. He's won two cups, and like you say, sign one last big deal. Right, set your family up for life. I could see that happening. So, speaking
And
of
that might be helpful, right? Would you rather keep an Aaron Ekblad or keep a Bennett and a Marchand
right,
together? I'd
right.
rather keep a Bennett and a Marchand, even though Ekblad's very, very valuable. That might be one of the ways to do it. So we'll see what happens. But listen, those are the values of riches that those are the things, the problems you want to have if you're a Zito, right? So
Where's Mitchy Marner going, Jr.?
whoa, that's
Where's
another
he
that's
going? Like is does Chicago throw a ton of money at him? Does
but
Columbus?
well, I think you're going to see Buffalo is going to throw a lot of money at him. I mean, I know he probably doesn't want to go to Buffalo. It's a short ride from Toronto. He's got some ties to Buffalo. He's a big Buffalo Bills fan. Who knows? Maybe Buffalo, with some of their young players that they have on their team because they have a pretty good team. They just have a terrible a terrible kind of, I think, chemistry in Buffalo. Um, I would think maybe Chicago will maybe make a run at them. They need some help and they're looking to rebuild, but or have been rebuilding. I don't, it's a really difficult question. But I bet you this much. I bet you he leaves Canada. I don't think he wants to be. I don't think he wants to be in that Canadian media market anymore. I think it's beating him down.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you should You should be able to play wherever, and you're a big boy, and there's expectations. You're making money and so on, but this guy just someone
How about a place like Carolina? Carolina's got a really good team. They got,
they do. Some
they got.
Someone's going to pay him too much money, though. I'm telling you right now, too much money. They're going to pay him 13, 14 million, and the guy does not play like a 13 and 14 million dollar
What do you
player.
say? What do you pay Sam Bennett?
9.
I said 10, and my boys at After the Whistle kind of laughed at me.
Yeah.
And and
Well,
I think Craig Rivet had a lot of really good points when he was telling me. He's like, listen, he's a 51 point getter, right? Um, Maybe you might have to rethink that now that he's a Conn Smythe Trophy winner. He's a two-time Stanley Cup winner.
right.
He's a 30 goal scorer. He's got a lot of credentials right now that I think people will overpay
They
for
will.
Sam Bennett. And you get a different type of player in the Sam Bennett than you get of the typical NHL player today.
The guy's a beast. The guy's a beast.
Well, okay, let me ask you this question because this question becomes very important. Does the mentality of how you build a team in the National Hockey League change now because of the way the Florida Panthers built their team, the way the Florida Panthers played, the way that the Matthew Tkachuk came into Florida, kind of changed the chemistry, changed the culture, changed the mentality, and they've become an absolute juggernaut? Do teams now try to build the way that Florida did by getting people like a Tkachuk, to get people like a Sam Bennett that can build a culture, that can demand a culture because of their their pedigree?
They
To does the game change a little bit now in order to win Stanley Cups?
Yes, it does, but the problem is those guys aren't on every street corner. Those guys are tough to find. Those guys are really tough to find. Jr. The Kachucks of the world, the Bennetts of the world, and I'm not taking a shot at this guy, but there's rumors in St. Louis that Doug Armstrong may be looking to trade Jordan Kyrou. Jordan Kyrou frustrates a lot of St. Louis fans because he not quite often does not play a 200-foot game. Disappeared in Game 7 of the series against Winnipeg. Uh, doesn't Does he have that drive that Marchand and Bennett's and Kachucks? I don't know if he's got that in him.
I think he has it, but can he do it consistently?
Yeah, that's the big
It's a
thing.
good point.
So there's a rumor, and I wouldn't be surprised if a Doug Armstrong. I don't think he will trade Kyrou. The guy gets 80, 90, 80 points a year. Those guys are tough to find. But to your question, yeah, teams would love to build teams like that, but those guys are tough to find. But
They are, but some of these guys, some of this mentality can be built. They can be they can be coerced into playing certain ways. Um, and I think when you have an entire team that demands it, coaching staff that demands it, management that demands it, mentalities will have to start changing. Because you can't tell me that every person on the Florida Panthers came to the Florida Panthers with that work mentality, that
right.
physical mentality, that all in team mentality, and that consistency mentality. You can't tell me that they were all like that when they got there.
No, you're absolutely right. And I was laughing to myself today because I saw a video of Marchand and Matthew Kachuk in the pool. And I'm like, can you imagine that, especially with those two characters, can you imagine the chirps back and forth when they played on different teams in Boston
Well, they
and
didn't like each other going down there. Now they're best buddies.
now they hated each other. Now they're best
Yeah.
buddies.
Which is another reason why we love hockey, right? Because it's just like,
Exactly. And
um,
I'm loving the videos of Marchand. He's trying to get back into that Club 11 in Miami. He's just shit faced, and the
oh
boys.
my God, the party videos have been epic. It's one of the best things about the Stanley Cup is final is watching the videos and watching the celebrations because nobody celebrates like NHL players after a championship.
You got Barkov, who might be one of the quietest guys ever, and he's acting like are
How
you?
about Barkov brought the Stanley Cup into the Uber? I mean, really? Come on.
and knocked on people's doors in his neighborhood at 3, 4 in the morning. They've got it on the Ring cameras, him walking around the
It's
neighborhood with the
amazing.
Stanley Cup.
And that's what makes these guys great. It makes these
Hockey
guys
is the
great. But
best. Hockey.
all in all, buddy, it was a great season. It was awesome to watch. Now we got the draft coming up this Friday. I will be up there,
I
so
hear
let's
you're
don't
presenting.
no, and
Oh,
we'll
oh,
see what happens. Hopefully, certain teams build some future superstars, but a lot
where
to
is the draft?
lot, huh?
Where is the draft?
It's in Los Angeles. It's in
Los
LA.
Angeles. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I'll be up there in LA. Get to see the new recruits come in, the newbies, and it's a good way to celebrate an amazing year because it was an amazing year in National Hockey League. Congratulations to the Florida Panthers for again showing true dominance, true grit, and true class all the way through. And Edmonton Oilers, sorry for that loss. You guys have been epic, an epic fight and battle. But hopefully you'll get back there again, and
Tough
you
to
know,
get back, but they did
yeah,
it years in
yeah.
a row.
And great job, PLZ. Great job on the year this year. It was amazing. We'll throw a couple podcasts throughout the summer.
Yeah.
Keep tuned for Snipes and Stripes right here on nofilter.net. Thanks again to Whiskey in the Wild, one of our sponsors, to Protect the Net Guards, and to all the people that download our show. We love talking to you guys. We love talking to each other because you know why? We love hockey. Way to go, PLZ.
Love you, buddy. See ya.
Bye bye.
Bye.